Guys, and welcome back to Third Wave Now with me, Kate. Firstly, major apologies for the radio silence. I've been rather under the weather, shall we say, with a sinus infection, and listening back to the recording from last time, I think I can hear it creeping up on the last podcast. Anyway, I'm still a little fragile, but I had to come back and keep momentum going with our spiritual parenting series. So you may recall that last time we talked of extending ourselves kindness and love, that it's okay to make mistakes. And in fact, if we expose our children to this process, along with how we rectify when we've erred, that it's a valuable, safe learning for them. It is a good experience that at an early age they encounter all aspects of our humanity in order to build up safe experiential learning, and how it's okay to admit when we've gone wrong, made a mistake, and generally been out of our flow. I think it also shows them how they can get back into their flow too. So today then, let's take a look at that a little bit more in terms of our own experiences as children. And perhaps some of us have had the contrasting experience where we've learned how not to do things instead of how to do them, if you get me. I'm not sure how much you know of the law of attraction, but contrasting experience, which, just kind of feels a bit wrong, is actually really valuable in terms of helping you identify your own moral compass, your own inner core and beliefs. Just to add here, for the sake of a lot of discussion today, we will be referring to the mother and father experience as feminine and masculine in a way. Although we need to fully acknowledge here that many of us didn't have this dynamic, and that either parent equally could express feminine or masculine as their dominant trait. By this we mean the masculine as a more assertive, predictive, very focused and clarified intent. We could perhaps say more forceful, dominant, linear energy, whereas the feminine we would view as more receptive, more nurturing, able to flow with emotions, and also more abstract, creative, deep feeling, and that inner connectedness to source. And again, this isn't to typify into gender stereotypes, but more to feel into the energies that we all embody. And also we all have our own unique ratio and aspect of this energy. This must be remembered in the discussion that follows. I myself, I feel I have quite a balanced set of energies now. It's not always been the case, and we'll perhaps come on to that soon. But we all have both feminine and masculine energies inside of us. So if we take a look then at feminine aspects, the feminine energies, when this is fully realized and appreciated, or allowed to flow without hindrance or rebuke, we open up all of those beautiful qualities we have mentioned in terms of nurturing, creativity, compassion and love. We encourage self-care, care for others, care for the planet, of course. Yet what happens if that's not allowed adequate expression? What's the shadow aspect, shall we say, of the divine feminine? Well, we can see real bitterness, passive aggression, self-doubt, self-hatred, resentment, emotional manipulation. And all of this can flow on into our family dynamics. If we've had a bad experience as a child with these feminine energies, as they've been relayed to us by our parents, tragically we can end up doing one of two, or perhaps both, of the things we're about to mention now. So firstly, we can grow up to mistrust female energy. We will push down even further. We'll stuff them down. All of those lovely, creative and beautiful expressions of the feminine, as we just don't see this as safe behavior. In turn, this can lead to self-loathing, self-mistrust and depression. And let's just take a look at that and see why that actually is the case. Children need to feel safe at all times. And when they're exposed to the toxicity of repressed divine energy, they'll naturally internalize it and they will blame themselves. As they see parental figures as the ultimate authority, they haven't got the ability to necessarily objectively look at the situation from a bird's eye view and realize that not necessarily the inadequacies, but the blocks lie within somebody else, not within themselves, because they need to feel safe. They need to identify with the authority figure. So all of this energy that's kind of been flipped on its head and has a rather dark aspect to it, they will internalize, and we will internalize. And if a situation is wrong, as children, we do tend to blame ourselves. Biologically, that's how we're wired. It's tribally unsafe to question the figures of authority within our lives. And if we can just, try and remember when we were children. I mean, I personally, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but I never really saw myself as a child. I never thought that's not my responsibility because I'm a child. I just saw myself as a person. I think it's only as an adult really that I can see, no, that's not your responsibility. That's not for you to deal with because you are a child. So I think we always have to remember the psyche there as well. So sadly, yes, we can end up turning it all in on ourselves and feeling really white to the floor with it all. But secondly, and this can be equally as distressing, don't worry guys, it does get a bit more positive towards the end. But secondly, we can end up embodying the passive-aggressive, emotionally manipulative, tortured bitterness that perhaps has come our way in waves at times. You've surely heard the expression monkey see, monkey do. And this is it in spades, This is the negative patterning that you will hear me talk about quite a lot. Even when we have an awareness of what is happening and awareness of why we're doing things, and it not actually being really us and how we want to express ourselves, it can be so difficult to escape, because it feels like it's almost hardwired in our very existence. And if we aren't careful, we go down the road of further self-loathing, like, I can't stop acting like this. Why am I behaving like this? That initial bit of awareness really needs to be nurtured, so you don't go down that slippery path. And we'll be talking about how we can do that later on. So if we take a look at the masculine energy, obviously the same rules will apply, just perhaps with a slightly different resonance, a slightly different frequency, and how it can affect you. The negative, the sort of shadow aspects of the masculine include, this is not a definitive list by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, the negative aspects can include aggression, impatience, lack of care, over discipline, bordering on dictatorship, physical force, bullying, intimidation, and in fact, potentially recreating this behavior ourselves is so far from cool, and it's like being trapped in a mental prison in a way, So again, yeah, we will mistrust the more assertive, the more forward, the more linear aspects of ourselves, as well as the potential to replay history. So if we take this, further on, with that, the experience we had from our caregivers as children, there can be a real imbalance, as we've kind of mentioned, in regards to our trust in the divine feminine and the divine masculine energies, because we've been more exposed to the shadow side than the released and the light side. And the crux of the matter is that now, more than ever, the world is really calling for a total balance and alignment of these two energies. They're partners of the cosmos, One is not inferior to the other. One does not solely serve the other. Whereas in the shadow aspects, they can both drive each other and try and enslave each other in a really toxic codependency, that the shadow aspect of the divine feminine actually being turned in on itself to the point where it's emotionally manipulative, passive aggressive and bitter. The divine masculine aspect being turned in on itself, where it's physically frightening and dictatorial in its nature. That's not cool. That's not what we want, and we know that's not what we want. We want the good side. We want the side that we know we truly are. So how do we begin then to rectify the imbalance we may perhaps feel within ourselves? Interestingly, when I began my own personal search for balance of my masculine and my female, my yin and my yang, every time I typed the word feminine into my keyboard, I would end up typing famine instead. I mean, talk about a Freudian slip, right? How telling is that? And it really shone a light actually on where I was imbalanced, and I knew I had to revert the frequency I was picking up and equally emitting. So I would suggest that you perhaps do the same. Look at the experiences you've had yourselves growing up. Where did you feel cut off? It might sound really trite to some, but were you allowed and encouraged to follow creative endeavors? Equally, were you encouraged to speak up for yourself and feel as though your voice mattered? These things are so important in terms of instilling that really positive side of these two really, really strong divine energies. So I would recommend meditating on this, just taking your time, perhaps calling in the Ascended Masters for guidance, mean, Merlin is the ultimate in helping people with shadow work. He has a very, very interesting history himself as being the son of a demon, apparently, yet all of his unearthly energies and powers were transmuted and turned around to enable him to work for light. There's a real story there. You want to check out the history of Merlin that not a lot of people talk about. We also have Kuan Yin, protectively loyal divine feminine, who instead of residing in nirvana, initially instead of being married off as a rich princess and all the trappings, she could sense the suffering in the world, and she wanted to increase the vibrations. She wanted to lift the world up. So she became a Buddhist nun, much to the dismay of her family, who cut her off. And she essentially achieved enlightenment. And as she was about to enter nirvana, she heard the cries of the world, and she chose to stay in a place where we could always access her energy and help from the divine feminine, the loyalty, the compassion, the love. And of course, the Virgin Mother, for so many, represents very much the same energy. We also have Saint Germain as divine masculine with the violet flame. And if you wanted to work on both in tandem as well, Apollo and Lumina combined, the Greek gods are fabulous to work with. So just know that there are those energies around you that really want you to do this work, that really want you to get to know yourself to the point where they are able to assist you and comfort you during this sort of times of inner reflection. So I would suggest that you really drill down and know yourself in terms of where you've been cut off and stifled, how this is manifested in behavior, thoughts, relationships. And it's really all about calling those fractured parts of your soul back to center. Those parts that were denied and negated, that weren't nurtured, they split off because we didn't feel safe associating with them. But I think now it's time to start herding some spiritual sheep, guys, and we need to appreciate our wholeness, the wholeness of who we are, not who we falsely believed we have to be for so long. You know, you're beautiful and you have such an inner light. So everything about you is divine. So call those pieces back. Get to know your real self. It gets a bit tedious wearing masks after a while. So if we're able to do this, and it is an ongoing process, you know, shadow work can actually seem quite daunting, as we do need to sit with and acknowledge that which we've run away from all our lives. So do be kind to yourselves here. It's all about allowing the expression of who you really are and releasing the pain of having denied it for so long. And also we need to be careful there not to guilt trip ourselves, because a lot of sensitive people will naturally do that. We will find something to feel responsible and guilty for, right? So just know there's no need to feel any guilt. It's a long lost and long overdue reunion, is what I would say, for sure. So yeah, we need to be kind to ourselves, and the results can be immense, really immense. Not only do we feel more whole, more present and connected, we value ourselves more, you know, so our healthy boundaries and our self-care all come back up to the levels they should be at. But let's offer this out again beyond ourselves, because our energies and our vibration never stops with us, right? This will totally impact upon the relationship we have with the children in our lives. We will be our true selves for them. Not only this, but we're encouraging them to be in touch with their whole selves also. What a gift to have, to be somebody nurtured, to be a little person nurtured and fully accepted for everything that they are. And a few practical ways to go about that. I mean, I guess they speak for themselves, but let's still discuss them anyway. On a day-to-day basis, do your children get the opportunity to follow the pursuits which really call them? You might not really want them to do certain things because you as a child might not have wanted to do that. But if it appeals to them, and remember, it's their journey and it's safe for them to do so, I would thoroughly encourage you to allow your child to explore the things that make them happy. But then again, if we flip that on its head, because I do like to flip things on their head, get to know, are there some activities that seem really daunting to your child? Are you able to guide and support them? I know with my little one, drawing, that was just no, mummy, I don't want to do that. And, I was told it was boring. I'm no good at it. And, we got excuse after excuse. I'd rather do this, I'd rather do that. And I could see there was a block there. And we talked about it quite a lot. And it turned out that somebody made quite a hurtful comment about his drawing. And this was a year ago that he'd remembered, it really stuck in him as a criticism. And that block was there and it was apparent. And it meant it stopped him. It stopped him exploring something that it was actually his right to explore. And so we discussed that for a while, and I'm glad to say he's back drawing, and he's very good at it too. So what I would suggest in these areas where your child has a block, and they might not want to do these things forever, that's fine, but at least to encourage options, shall we say. I would suggest an air of curiosity here. No expectations, no, this will be perfect, this will be amazing, you'll love this. Let's just see how we feel. And as long as they know they're safe, they're loved, they don't have to be perfect, they're not going to be judged, and equally that there's room for their preferences after exploration. This really is all we can ask of them, and indeed ourselves at this time. We need to be gentle with everybody who's taking part in really getting to know who they are, their divine aspects and their preferences. So hopefully that made sense to you guys. I do think it's important for us to explore these topics, and here's to everybody being fully in touch with their quotient of the divine masculine and feminine, and the mutual love, support and respect we can all provide each other as we make our way through this process. Once again, thank you so much for listening. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you again. And if anybody has any comments, any questions, needs any help, please don't hesitate to get in touch. There should be contact details on the podcast information, and likewise on the YouTube description as well. So I hope you will have a lush weekend. Be kind to yourselves and take it easy, guys. Cheers.